Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on Daybreak, a show coming to you live, of course, from our studio here in the nation's capital. Now, to discuss further on the open graze ban and the ranching that has been proposed by a senator from the Benue State, which is beg your pardon, Senator Zam, Titus Zam. We have someone from Lamurde in Adamawa State, a social entrepreneur and development strategist, Dr. Agoso Bamaiyi, joining us via Zoom to dissect this in a more deeper level. Good morning, Doctor. It's good to have you.
Good morning, and I'm happy to be here.
Of course. So I'm sure you've been keeping tabs on what is happening in the National Assembly on this open grazing ban. What is your take generally from, or what was the first reaction of, this bill that was passed? At least it has passed the second reading so far.
Well, when I heard about it, I felt it was time. It was time we begin to talk about this because this issue has lingered for so long and has created so much friction, so much problems all across the country. That my thinking all this while has been that any government that really wants to bring good governance to the people should do something about this. So I'm excited that the discussion is going on. I don't like the tone of it in so many instances, but it's good that we are talking about this. We have to. We just have to.
Indeed. So we have senators from the northern part of Nigeria, like Senator from Kebbi, Senator Adamu Aleru, Senator from Gombe, Danjuma Goje, bringing concerns. Even Senator, the Deputy Senator, which is Barrow, pointing out that, there is a bit of concern from the Fulani, and Nigerians are thinking they are being emotional about this or sentimental about this situation. Is that also a belief of yours? Do you agree with that?
The pushback from the north is to be expected naturally because most of the migratory cattle grazers in Nigeria are from the north. So it's expected that you would have a lot of pushback from the north. But what I would advise is that we should look at these things dispassionately. We should take away our emotions and use our heads. And if we use our heads and we look around all across the world, we will see that ranching has done a lot of good for other countries, and in a business sense, and also, of course, in a practical sense, in terms of peace and harmony in communities across the north and around Nigeria, where you have open grazing going on, that ranching will make a practical sense. But this is something that has to be done. In other words, what I'm saying, I am for ranching. I am for restricting the movement of cattle or any other animal for that matter, and putting them in one place and all that. I am for that. But there are a number of things that need to be attended to before we do that and before we enforce it. And that's why I say I'm happy that the discussion is going on now, because some of those issues, some of the things that need to be done are coming forward gradually, and we will have a good understanding of those things. And then whatever conclusions we draw at the end of the day will be conclusions that will benefit those who herd cattle and the community and the country at large.
Yeah. So, Doctor, talking about changing the laws and all of that, Senator Samuel Lalong spoke in that same bill process passing, where he made mention that not only is the Constitution supporting at least the movement, saying no Nigerian is more Nigerian than the other. He also pointed out that ECOWAS has a protocol of saying there is freedom of movement with your business and all of that. But also there is also the fact that we have a culture in the country, and open grazing for the longest time has been that part of a culture for a typical Fulani man to move his cattle from one place or another. What are the things, since you are for saying that it is high time, the ranching system take place, what are the things that you think should be put in place in order for this at least this transition to be made quickly and smoothly, because we are so used to not considering our cultures in making in passing bills, and at the end of the day it becomes counterproductive?
Well, the people who talk about culture and the lifestyle need to understand that culture is dynamic. Culture, as soon as it begins to fail to serve peace and prosperity and growth, then it's time to change the culture. I'm a cultural man myself. As a matter of fact, I'm a traditional leader. And one of the things I do with the community I am responsible for is to speak to the people about certain cultural practices that have been going on for generations but are no longer relevant. We have to look at the relevance of open grazing. We have to look at the fact that it is creating tensions, and some of these tensions have resulted in conflagrations and bloodshed all across the country, and it will continue to do so because the land is not growing, but the people have increased, the population have increased. There's a higher demand on land now than at any time in the life of this country, and that demand is going to increase. Also, I need to point out that the migratory tradition is not peculiar to Nigeria. It's countries who have more cattle than we have, or than we can even dream of ever having, have had culture of migratory herding before eventually restricting the animals and turning to ranching. So when people say it's a tradition, and as a result, they're arguing that it cannot be changed, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. It can be changed. And as a matter of fact, it will be for not only for the good of the country, but also for the good of the herders themselves. Countries where cattle are kept in one place, you have multiplier effect all across the value chain. Because they are kept in one place, they are not moved around so much. They grow fatter, they produce more milk, they are much more fertile, and then the value chain of herding can be applied. I mean, the businesses around hides, businesses around bones, businesses around blood, etc., can grow. And there are lots of countries we can learn from and apply this in our country. Now, when I said that there are things that we need to do, one of the things that I believe the country should do is to not set up a commission for herding or whatever, for pastoralists or whatever the name is called. We have too many commissions. I think that money should be put aside deliberately to encourage the business of herding, to encourage these herders to come together in cooperatives, take money, and bring up and put together ranches. It will be easier to treat the animals. It will also rest their children. Their children can go to schools and grow up to become scientists or do some other things else while the family business is thriving. I mean, you mentioned Texas, for instance. Some of the richest people in Texas are herders. They are ranchers, people who own cattle. And prosper very well if they keep their animals in one place. And so that's what we're talking about. These are the things that we need to look at, to put in place financial facilities that will help these people to settle down, to have a transitional period where these things are carried out, and not just to bring a law like it was done in Benue State without the preliminary things being done. And that resulted in a lot of problems in Benue State. I have read the bill, the law in Benue State carefully, by and large, it's a good. Where this business is encouraged and they are helped to grow the business, to understand it very well, and then they can go on from there. That is something that needs to be done before we put a law in place that bans open grazing.
Indeed. I mean, Doctor, thank you for addressing this because my question was coming from that angle. We are known for, passing a bill before even putting things in place, which I easily brought the example of what is happening with the removal of fuel subsidy without having refineries in place to at least cushion that removal for citizens. So here is the skepticism coming from the northern leaders and the northern legislatures saying if at all if at all this should be passed, then there should be something put in place. But with the way it's looking, even though we know that it's still in process, it's not looking like this decision will be made before passing the bill. Are you skeptical about how the implications of this bill being passed and implemented would come out?
If we pass this bill in a hurry, like it did in Benue State, it will create more problems for us than solutions. This bill should not be passed in a hurry. It should eventually be passed, but not in a hurry. That's why I say we have to be dispassionate about this. We have to remove our emotions and use our heads. And when we use our heads, we will see that we need a transitional period. How long that will be has to be debated and agreed upon. We will also see that we will need some form of subsidy, we don't like to hear that name subsidy in Nigeria, understandably, but we will need some form of facilitation, some form of loan facilities and financial facilities in place to help them set up. We will need a lot of awareness, a lot of education. Remember that around ranches, you would need grass farms. We would need to import those types of grass. We would need to also develop the culture of growing grass just to feed our animals and all that. So it's going to take some time. Yeah. It's going to take a lot of technical expertise. We have the time if we're not in a hurry, and I caution against hurry. We also have the technical expertise. There are countries we can learn this from so that this thing is done properly. At the end of the day, we will double, triple, or even quadruple the number of cattle we have right now. Milk production will increase, meat production will increase, hide production will increase. The number of bones and the various things that can be done with bones will also increase. It will benefit us all around. It will benefit the country and it will benefit the herders. Indeed. But it has to be done carefully.
Yeah, Doctor, when you mentioned the fact that Nigerians are tired of hearing the word subsidy, it just resonated with me. But one way or another, we've seen government intervention in other businesses as well, even if we consider, cattle rearing as a business. We've seen the anchor borrowers for farmers and all of that. So definitely agreeing with that take of yours. But then let's talk about the implications of this and how it would be implemented. One of the main reasons why herders move from one place to another, let's be honest, is something about especially this autonomy that has been pushed for local government. Because if you go to a lot of local government, there is nothing to write home about. So if at all this is to be passed, what will be the role of, say, the state government, even the representative of each constituency there, the local government, traditional leaders in general? What do you think their roles would be, the parts they need to play in order to make this a smooth transitioning?
Given the financial weakness of our states, most of our states, not all the states, and also the local governments. Hello?
Yes, are you still with us, Doctor?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, given
the fact that they are weak, and I said, no, this administration has increased allocations of each state. So I wouldn't call them weak now.
Well, comparatively, they still remain weak. And by weakness, I mean they are dependent on federal allocations. And most of these states do not generate sufficient IGR to operate on their own. If the federal government lifts its hand, a lot of our states will crumble. So they are basically dependent on what the federal government is doing for them. And they're going to remain like that for a long time, because you do not see any business plan in most of these states that will indicate to you that their prosperity in terms of what they make is going to increase in the near future. You have governors borrowing huge sums of money just to do capital projects, and maintaining these projects are also expensive. It's like burying money. They are not increasing productivity. They are not increasing increasing business. They're not increasing income, manufacturing, etc., the sort of things that will bring money to them, which they can then use to strengthen themselves and become less dependent on the federal government. So for a long time, a lot of these states are going to remain dependent on the federal government. I agree that the allocation from the federal government has been increased. But the point I was trying to make is this. The federal government will have to carry most of the weight of transitioning from open grazing to more restricted grazing that everybody agrees will bring greater prosperity. The federal government will have to carry the main weight of that. But then the state governments with legislation and application would also have to play a role in carrying out whatever we agree upon. When we agree on the transition, we agree on the sort of support that will be given to them and all that. The state governments will have to play a role in doing that. And they're located mainly in local governments. So a lot of support will have to be given to the local government to help these herders set up their businesses, set up ranches and things like that. And of course, the traditional leaders have been playing a direct role in mitigating conflicts between herders and farmers and other communities wherever herders are found, or when herders come in seasonally. There are some communities where herders come in seasonally. They're not around all the year. So traditional leaders will also have to be taken in. Let's not neglect them. They play a very important role in carrying out these things. I'm a traditional leader myself, so I know what I'm telling you. We work more directly. We're in much more close contact with the ordinary people, with the communities, with the issues that challenge them than elected politicians. But elected politicians are better paid than us. They are better equipped than us. They are better protected than us. They have the money. They have the budgets. We don't have a budget. So we are with the people daily. As I'm discussing with you, waiting for me, are 3 cases that have to do with land and the use of land. And the politicians representing my constituency are in the state capital, basically free of all these disturbances. You hardly sleep. So our traditional leaders will have to be, the consideration has to be given to them. They need to be strengthened so they can apply whatever law we eventually agree upon. So the point I'm making is this, and Nigerians need to look at it. First, there should be a transitional period. Let's not hurry. Let's not hurry to put a law. Secondly, the federal government has to come in. Money has to be given to these people to set up this business. Whatever way, whether it's a loan that they will pay back, whether it's a grant, this has to be agreed upon. And then, since we have set a period for it to run, then we supervise it. State governments will supervise it, local government will supervise it, working with the traditional leaders to make sure that this is done. And we also have to work in cooperation with our neighboring countries. You need to remember that a lot of these cattle seasonally move from Nigeria into other countries and our neighboring countries and then move back into Nigeria. So we have to talk with those neighboring countries and agree on a system that will meet their needs and will also meet our needs and help us implement this policy. So lots of consultation has to be done. I don't see that going on right now. What I see is a lot of emotion. We need to calm down. Like Lagbaja will say, cool temper. We need to cool down our temper on both sides and look at these issues dispassionately.
Yeah. All right, Doctor, I wanted to hear your take on this. One of the things that was put in the bill suggestions is that the pastoralists should move back to their state in order to build this ranch. Do you agree with that? I mean, that's the reason why I asked what would be the job or some kind of responsibility of the state government in this decision. So what do you think? Do you think it is best for them to move back, or at least everybody should remain where their home is right now, and the federal government will do the needful?
That's another thing. That's one other reason I said a lot of consultation has to go on. You know, one of the things that has to be discussed is the location of those ranches. And as it stands right now, most of the people who do the open grazing are from an ethnicity that is based primarily in the north. And so states from the south and from the east would not want those ranches located in their localities. But if we take the practical issues on ground, the fact that desertification is taken away most of the north. The grasses are no longer growing as tall as they used to and as huge and as plentiful as they used to. Foliage is becoming more and more scarce. It is becoming thinner and thinner in the north. And that's one reason why you have these migratory herders moving into the jungles and the forests of the south, because the reality is most of the states of the north cannot support this open grazing anymore because it's turning into desert everywhere. So discussion has to go on with these various states, and an agreement has to be reached as to whether they will be located there, under what terms, etc., etc. Now, one section should not shout down the other section. We should talk about these things. Very, very important. I don't like it when Nigerians are shouting at each other instead of discussing dispassionately. I have written a lot about this. I have been consulted a lot about this. As I'm talking to you calmly, that's the way I talk about it, even when my people are involved and are at the receiving end of the crisis and conflicts. So it's important we discuss this and reach an agreement about that. That will be one aspect that consultation has to be done about.
So finally, on a lighter note, Doctor, how can we ensure that there's a great communication in order to provide a better solution on this open grazing situation?
We need to listen to each other. We need to listen to each other. It's not good when you only listen to people who are making the kind of points that you agree with, and you're not listening to others who you think are on the other side. When we are open-minded and we listen to all the arguments, we learn and we grow. I mean, when you're walking or driving, you're blindsided. There are some blind spots that you do not see. And that's why you have a rear view mirror, so you can look behind and see what is going on. Let's look behind. Let's ask questions. Let's be open-minded. Let's not say, it's not our tradition, therefore we don't want it here. Or it's our tradition, therefore it must remain. The answer is in between. And as we look at it dispassionately, we will come up with a solution that will benefit us all. And that's my call to Nigerians. Be calm, be cool. I repeat what I said, like Lagbaja would say, cool temper, and let good sense prevail.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agoso Bamaiyi, for joining us, a social entrepreneur and development strategist. Appreciate your time, as usual, to grant us this interview. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Of course. And of course, subsequently, if there is any update on this matter of open grazing ban, we'll definitely bring it to you on our station here, Trust TV. But let's take a quick break.